Beardy and the Beast, the second wall.
Ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba. This is a placeholder intro song.
Thank you for joining us here at the Second Wall as we continue our water cooler discussion of Carole and Tuesday. Today we'll be discussing episodes 10 through 12 as well as doing a wrap up of the first season. There will be light spoilers for the entire season. If you missed the first three episodes, please check it out as we will be following up on questions raised there. With me, of course, is fellow Judge Drew.
Hey!
Please like, subscribe, comment on your platform of choice, all of which can be found at beardyandthebeast.com. So, Drew, was this Mars' brightest?
I'm not sure if this was Mars's brightest, but I tell you what was.
Hmm.
Artagon. Definitely Mars's brightest. My boy is back. I didn't get to see Skip, but I got to see Artagon, so all is well.
I think you called that one, if I remember correctly.
Oh, I had a couple very correct predictions. Um, but I mean we should probably talk about the episodes individually first, but I think overall it went how I thought it would go in the moment. I couldn't I couldn't call it far ahead of time,
Yeah,
but I could definitely see where it was developing as it was. Like there was nothing that was keeping me guessing throughout the
yeah,
episodes to finish it.
fair enough. So, I guess we'll start then with episode 10.
Yes, episode 10, or what I personally think was Angela's episode.
Mm,
Um, most of the story beats, in my opinion, seem to center around Angela. I really enjoyed it to see that character developing.
yeah,
Like they did so much with Carol and Tuesday at the beginning, and they've just kind of been doing that slow ember, like that slow burn from then till now. But
right.
for them to actually throw more at Angela and see her character developing. For instance, some of the stuff that I like is like her showing actual personality and not facades.
Yeah, definitely had a lot of that there. And I guess even going with that, because they're kind of linked here. So Tao as well. Like the song Angela sung in that one there very much showed her growth more. Like you could feel it being a bit more personal than Move Mountains, her first song, I found. And of course, Tao changing that song kind of like right at the beginning of it too, right?
Yeah, definitely. As far as songs go, like unrelated to the show, I thought "Move Mountains" is the better song.
Mm,
But like Tao taking care and correctly reading the situation to show the appropriate song for Angela to use in 10 to the
yeah,
one to compete with GGK, like going from ballad to something more dancey,
mm,
something more like EDM
yeah,
was the right choice. I I I, I hope to see more development of it. They haven't done much development of Tao, but he's becoming a real boy.
mm.
I mean, eventually.
Yeah,
Uh,
oh, for sure. Um,
I
GGK's song. Oh, go ahead.
I another thing that I liked was the covering of uh, the the little tidbits of things like when Carol said, "I feel like our tempos are out of sync," which is of course a musical. Uh, then you could kind of hear it in their song, and the judges picked up on it. Like they really were able to showcase that well, and it led um, perfectly into episode 11, which I personally think was more of a showcase of Carol specifically, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah. I think Tuesday's Carol and Tuesday's song was episode 11 as
Yes.
well. Yeah.
I
This
think
one here we had GGK and Piotr.
exactly. Um, they they definitely were able to. It was the first moment in the entire show between 10 and 11 where I felt I need to watch the next one.
Mm,
Like that one more chapter moment.
yeah.
It's something that had been missing throughout the series. Like I would definitely binge this. It's
Mm,
set up very well to do so, but I didn't have that like stay up all night to finish it situation.
yeah. Well, you kind of mentioned that like at the end of last second wall as well,
Mm.
where like you were starting to feel the dread and
Mm.
such. So the needing to go what's next. And let's face it, these 3 episodes are pretty bang bang bang
Well,
with
yeah,
what's happening.
and that goes back to like the story structure and story beats. We kind of covered it in the tale of Princess Kaguya. Like Japanese storytelling. It's
Yeah,
very back ended. It's a slow build up and then a spike at the end, which this followed suit quite well.
yeah, for sure. Um, so I guess in episode 10, of course, we had kind of Sybil, her continuing with her stalker fan ways.
Yeah, and she did what I said she was gonna do. Technically, she took
Yes,
Tuesday's guitar away.
yes, yes. Not how you were expecting, I'm sure, but
No,
yes.
I expected a physical abduction of that piece because there would
Yeah,
have been emotional significance to it. But given that there is not really an antagonist at all in this
mhm,
series, it's all situational.
yeah,
So the conflict is like world based and character building. If Sybil were to have physically abducted the guitar, and of course I'm like giving a personality to this girl. I imagine has a name. Tuesday looks.
Hummingbird.
Oh, is it?
Her character's name Hummingbird. Yep, she
Uh,
says it in the first episode.
okay, yeah. Tuesday is the type of person to name a guitar.
Yep.
The If she had physically taken the guitar, that would have made Sybil an antagonist in the true sense. It would have
Yeah,
framed her as one of like a primary character,
yeah,
opposed to an effect of the world that they're in
right.
and the world that they're trying to obtain. So what I mean is, unfortunately, I have to like strip the person away from Sybil. She is more of an outlet of cause and effect within the series.
Yeah,
I mean, I'd like to see her come back and be crazier than before, but that's not something I expect to see in, say, season two. I just see her as being like a wind through the valley that they're in. It's
right.
something that causes ripples in the water. It's something that causes the leaves to fall off the tree. But when it's gone,
Yeah,
and the effects are lasting.
yeah. Before we go on to I guess the full effects of what happened to Sybil, because that's more episode 11 than
Yep.
10. Let's just pause for a second and talk about your boy Erdogan.
Yes.
Um, just um, I loved the reaction that Erdogan had and Carole and Tuesday had because they all had the same reaction.
Oh,
Right,
which
just
part
that
when they like
cringe.
saw each other?
Yeah. I loved that.
Oh, yeah, Erdogan is definitely just like them. You can see that Erdogan was previously on a similar journey.
Mhm.
I, I wouldn't say that he's the exact end point that they'll end up at,
Yeah.
but there's just so many similarities, and that's probably why they butt heads.
Yeah.
Actually, what I just realized that is that they only had like 45-second interaction with Artagun in the past.
Yep.
They really haven't talked. So like in my head, I I have this whole like invented storyline where they have some type of conflict going, but they've really only like talked with each other for about 45 seconds.
Yep.
I didn't even see it as being that negative. That that relationship didn't go where I thought it would.
For sure. Well, I mean, we'll still see where it goes. I mean, let's be fair. You never had an idea of where the relationship is going.
That's true.
You, Erdogan was always your mystery one. Um, I think there's some interesting things to note with Erdogan's judgments of some characters there,
Hmm.
but I'm not going to point anything out unless you actually caught it yourself. Leave that there. Sure, if it stood out to you, would have.
I know. He definitely seemed more interested in things that were genuine.
Mhm.
So like GGK just wasn't interested at all.
Yeah,
Like this big fabricated personality in front of him, he didn't seem to have any interest.
yeah,
However, he did end up having like an emotional reaction at the very end to Carol Tuesday. So that would definitely kind of draw back to the whole premise of the show, which is like heart and soul verse.
yeah. Indeed. Let's see. I'm pretty sure because this one here, we had Tao talk to Angela about how the songs are made too. Right? I can't remember if that was this episode or the next episode.
I think I think it was at the beginning of 11.
Mhm.
You're talking about the whole like that entire building is just a machine to like analyze Angela
Yeah,
and read her, including her emotions, and
yeah.
that gave me a slightly different perspective on Tao.
Mm,
I'm not 100% convinced, but well, we'll see where that goes.
yeah. We'll go into what that perspective is when we kind of do a little bit
Yeah.
more formal questioning, as it were. Uh, One thing I noticed with Pewter, I'm not sure if it stood out for you as well, was how much value he places on others' thoughts. Like even his entire song. Like,
True. That being said, if his speech was truthful, then I would assume that he does place value in them,
mhm,
but he is also striving be as to be himself
yeah,
as best as he can. Like it's not to do what others want him to do or what others want him to be, but there
yeah,
is a lot of value there. So the way that it might also just I might be just picking up on that something that's more related to the way that the episodes are structured, which I'm
mm,
sure we'll talk about later. It might have just been out of character, unrelated to his actual development, and more related to the entire episode.
right. All right, well, let's go into episode 11.
And to me, I swear this is Carol's episode. Uh,
Right?
I mean, I know that like Tuesday gets kidnapped,
That's at the very end.
yeah, at the very end,
End.
and like she was having some troubles, but I think this one was definitely more about Carol, and about Carol like self actualizing, becoming whole.
Right.
And it even starts from Erdogan's speech about how no one could have done what he did because what he did was become the best Erdogan that he could be.
Yeah.
Not the best artist, not the best DJ. He was essentially saying like the best version of himself. And then from there, in Carol's interview, just straight up saying, "What would you say to your parents?" And her reply was, "I'm here."
Yeah.
And then following up with a song which included things like "Strong on My Own." So her becoming whole, her growth, like this is definitely like a peak point for her as a character.
Lost My Way is probably like in my top 3 favorite songs of the entire series. That is one that I could listen to again and again and again.
I I really I can't remember which one was in 9. However, if I were to compare Angela's songs to Carol and Tuesday up until the end, I actually preferred most of Angela's songs. But I might just be pop trash, so anyone who's into singer-songwriters can just write an angry comment.
Well, yeah, that's actually fairly accurate. I mean, I listen to a lot more indie in
Mm,
general, which is very much a Carol and Tuesday sound.
true. I
So,
definitely listen to more like electronic trappy beat stuff or like hip hop or pop stuff.
yeah. Let's, I guess, talk about Sybil here a little bit. I kind of enjoyed how ambiguous it was about, like, I don't feel it was ambiguous for us as an audience what happened, but how they portrayed it in the episode. How all of the cast
Mm.
didn't know who it was and kind of got that bit of tension and
Well, the cast
Angela's
wouldn't.
reaction.
Yeah, the cast wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Um, like this conflict that happened with Sybil and Tuesday was very closed into just them.
Mhm.
Uh, like the person who witnessed it most was Carol, and even then she didn't see much of it.
Yeah.
Like she didn't know Tuesday got bit. She didn't know all the weird stuff that Sybil was saying. She just essentially saw some rude girl that was being overly fond with Tuesday.
Yeah.
Might have been a tinge of jealousy there, might have been a tinge of concern. Just who's this crazy girl? I could see Carol having vibes of like, this girl gives me the willies. Yeah, that being said, having it be so ambiguous was definitely nice. And then bringing Gus and the mother together and having like those interactions has been really entertaining to me. But I almost feel like that wasn't drawn out long enough. I know it wouldn't have been possible to with the way that the entire series is structured,
Yeah.
but I think it should have taken more time. It kind of went, you know, 2 minutes of episode time from like outside of the song. Like, so, a minute or two beforehand and a minute or two after for that to be wrapped up in a tiny bow.
Right.
Tuesday got injured and then they did their thing, played their song. Oh, they've apprehended the culprit.
Well, I don't know if I completely agree. I mean, one thing the show's done, and we've touched on this before, they're very effective with their time.
Mm,
They haven't needed to give much time, and I think the Gus and Dahlia thing was just playing more off of, again, that rivalry
mm.
that's there that mimics very much Angela and Carol and Tuesday. So I don't necessarily think that needed much more. I'm more interested in Angela's reaction to the entire thing.
Oh, I was sitting there because I'm growing fonder of Angela as the episodes go by, and it's directly proportionate to her growth as a character.
Mhm.
Whereas I actually I sensed I said it out loud when it occurred. I sensed that she was actually concerned about what happened to Tuesday,
Mhm.
and it was something beyond herself. As in, she it wasn't what happened to Tuesday and how it affects me,
Yeah.
which is what you would assume her character would be like to start in this
Yeah.
show. Nowadays, I think she actually had some concern for Tuesday, and she's barely even spoken with them.
Yeah.
But that kind of draws up to where that would drop into episode 12 and how Angela, in the end, just wanted like a duel of emotional content.
Yeah.
But Angela's reaction was just priceless. I didn't know what to do at that point. Like I was thinking to myself, is she gonna go into Carol and Tuesday's room and like check in on her? Is she going to go in there and pep them up by giving them a sense of rivalry? Like
Mhm.
go walk in and say something cheeky to kind of um perk them up a bit is what I thought. But her actually getting on the case, which then
She
went
went
in,
on the warpath.
yeah, and then even then it kind of drew into her character development, whereas she was concerned about the people around her not believing in her,
Mhm.
which I mean kind of draws from her past,
Yeah.
and I'm glad that they kept that in there because it would have been uncharacter. It wouldn't be like her character had they not.
Well,
But
it builds on what you said previously about how you can see she's not confident,
mhm.
right? She makes it well.
And I think now she's definitely more confident, and part of her warpath was definitely her being concerned that the people around her who are supposed to have confidence in her don't.
Mm.
But I definitely I don't know. I saw something in there that was concern for Tuesday.
Yeah. All right. I think that mostly covers that, and of course, we end with the kidnapping of Tuesday there. So, episode 12.
12. What I can tell you about 12 is it's the only way you could have wrapped up this season.
Mm.
Uh, I given that the one guard or whatever hit Carol, I'm really surprised that they didn't have a little moment where Gus like said something about it and decked him or something.
Mm.
Because especially after that ultra fatherly speech that Gus gives Carol,
Yeah.
which like I'm not typically an emotional person in this way, but I had that little twinge of, oh no, am I gonna tear up right now when he was when he was talking to Carol about the whole situation. It essentially went like fatherly advice followed to a call for Carol to make a decision,
Mm.
because it was clear that Carol was being wishy-washy. She didn't know what to do,
Yeah.
and for Gus to come up and be just like, you have to make this decision. What are you going to do? And
Yeah.
then of course followed up with, well, I'm going to kidnap a girl right now. You coming?
Yeah. Um, I think Carol and Tuesday's interaction over 11 and 12, I think it touches on one of your predictions right from the get-go.
Really?
Yes, it does.
Oh, are you
It was,
talking about one of them metaphorically like betraying the other and then leaving?
yep.
I thought about it. Maybe 20%, right? The I mean, it's because I know I'm super smart, but in this aspect, like I would feel guilty if I were to claim correctness on this. Sure, she left, but at the bench scene, neither of them had a sense of betrayal. They only had a sense of confusion. They didn't understand what was going on with the other.
So,
So when I mentioned it before, I was actually talking about, um, and maybe it's something I didn't express properly, but that
mm,
could be it, where Tuesday would say something or do something, and that would make Carol feel betrayed,
right.
and then Carol would leave, is the situation I was foretelling.
Yeah.
Whereas in this case, just them being offbeat and not being of the same heart,
Mhm.
mostly because of confusion. Whereas,
So,
yeah.
I guess I've got a couple of points on this because when you said the betrayal,
Hmm.
I immediately thought of these two episodes.
Okay.
So I actually noted them down as like I think my specific note was it was something like, but not quite as you expect.
Yeah,
Is
definitely.
actually what I wrote. So there's a couple of different perspectives that I personally would throw into this.
Hmm.
So first of all, you're not a 17-year-old girl.
I mean,
Your idea of betrayal is could be very different.
I'm pretty
Um,
though.
well, that's beside the point. um, so I think that betrayal, like, 'cause I mean, even Gus says that you think you're betrayed, and I made that mistake, and that ruined a relationship. So that's definitely what they were going for, I believe. The other thing that I noted was, if you think about it, it was actually, in a way, Carol betrayed Tuesday, because in episode 11, they their discussion there, like, Carol got super accusatory about
Hmm.
the just wanting to win, right? So I see it as Carol ended up betraying Tuesday, which got compounded by Tuesday being kidnapped, and then both of them feeling betrayed because neither of them knew how to reach out. And you
Hmm.
see that with both of them on their phones, having a message to send, but neither of them being able to do it. So I don't think it's the direct betrayal that you're thinking, but I think that that was the emotion these two 17-year-old girls are going to be feeling.
For sure. Well, I guess I probably forgot about age because I had definitely at points where was projecting onto Carol.
Mm.
And I'm like, I am definitely not a 17-year-old girl, so this is probably elevating it at some point. I
Mm.
mean, the last time I had any type of age acknowledgement for them was probably when I was like at the festival.
Mm.
These two young individuals just crushing it on stage with a bunch of people like booing them and whatnot. I couldn't do
Yeah.
that at that age. Probably not even at my age.
Yeah, that's very fair. Um, what did you think of I guess Tuesday's brother? We got a little bit more interaction with her family, like you were kind of hoping to see.
All these side characters are just so good. They're just so darn good. They have the tiniest parts and they're just well written and they're carefully considered.
Yeah.
Skip and Crystal being two of them. And of course, I mean, Artagon has a bigger part, but the brother is probably you probably have a similar feeling in this regard. Just the times that he shows up and the interactions that he has, those small are just so integral to what's going on.
Mhm.
And the fact that he showed up and could have that heart to heart.
Yeah.
And I don't know, uh, a brotherly heart to heart like that is few and far between. So when you have that, it's it should be impactful. It's not something that you have every month or every so often or communication like that. It's something that comes out of nowhere and it hits like a truck and it's filled with emotion even though it's might even be stone faced.
Yeah.
So those people who haven't felt like a type of brotherly bond either with a very close male friend or alternatively with like a biological sibling
Yeah.
might not kind of understand that, but I
Yeah.
they wrote it so well to have that impact. Yeah, I like how he came in, did the brotherly thing. He kind of just laid it out on the plate, and it seemed exactly like how I thought it would be.
Mm.
The whole like he was envious and he was cheering her on and he wanted her to go far and wanted to help her like achieve this dream, and the best way was to like stay out of her way.
Yeah.
I
And
really got that.
yeah, like I feel like they really did it well. And I mean, being someone who's had my share of conflicts with my siblings,
Mm,
it's you don't necessarily realize what each other's feeling,
mm,
right? You think you do, right? And just having that conversation's like, yeah, no, clearly neither of us knew each other. I just knew that I went to get you and I saw you sing, and like, nope, I got to. Like that's what it is, right? And I mean, even him saying he had the same dreams as her,
mm.
but he wasn't good for it, right? Like it's yeah, it was a it hits really in the feels. I think they did that very well.
It was
Um,
compounded too. Like going. Think it was either the scene with Gus and Carol, and then the brother, which I swear I had written down his name,
Spencer.
Spencer, Spencer and Tuesday. Uh, those being next to each other and
Mm,
having like uh, the feels were perfectly let up and like compounded.
yeah.
If if I were to have shed a tear, it would have been in that time. So our more emotional listeners might have been had tears streaming down their faces, and it would have been warranted.
So I guess another few things like before they go and re-kidnap Tuesday back. um, there's a lot of nice visual things that I'm not quite sure if you caught on, just because of how we've been watching it. Specifically with Carol, when she's kind of in the city alone. A lot of
they
those scenes. Oh,
they
go ahead.
they did a bunch of that. They did do like recaps of situations where she was with Tuesday previous,
Yeah.
but they did a lot of city scenes to expand upon what was going on. They used that as a very good set piece, especially when it went into Angela's song. But if there was something other than that that I missed, I'd like to know.
Yeah, so a lot of the scenes that you see with Carol, like when she's kind of alone and kind of being her mopey, like, skateboarding down past the street and such like that, a lot of those scenes were actually the same scenes that they did right after the Round and Round song
Hmm.
in like the first episode, but without Tuesday. So it's kind of like that neat, like, I know we're a big fan of talking of the bookends
Yeah.
and such, and it in my mind helps drive home the issues with it,
Hmm.
or with their feelings, and of course, by the end of it, you wrap up on their performance of "Loneliest Girl."
What a performance too. It was a great song.
It's another one of those ones that can hit right in the feels.
It didn't have the same impact as their other ones for me though. Just the I was paying more attention to the lyrical content of this because of course like in the last second wall I kind of had that finally had that epiphany where it was like, oh yeah, these songs directly relate to what's going on in the show. um and it didn't seem like the right choice, but on the other hand there's probably a bit of catharsis in the song,
Mhm.
especially like from where they were going up to where they ended up. I, in the repertoire of songs that they had done, it's only one they could have done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good song. It's no Move Mountains, but it's a good song.
And I think that's a big thing with "Loneliest Girl." I think the catharsis is actually
Mm,
probably a good word there, because this is a song we've heard before,
yeah.
right? And so we knew that we had the feels the first time it played. I do think again, their passion shows through it, and the judge's reaction to it. I mean, even Erdogan's reaction to it, like you kind of get that, oh fuck, what did I do?
Yeah.
Look with me, right? Um, but I think again, it's the bookends. This is
Mm.
the song that brought them together, right? They just had their quote unquote betrayal arc
Yeah,
to loop back to the song that brought them together,
for sure.
right? I think that has a lot to do with it, and I think it fits very well because of that. As I said, I think "Lost My Way." I like that song better.
That was the one
Yeah,
from
there's one.
10?
Yeah, that was the one. That was the one when she had her hand burned.
Okay,
Mhm.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'd like to see a full like a more full arrangement of Lost My Way.
Mm,
Like I'd like to hear that, but
right.
I think Lost My Way is more that track that I would listen to on repeat
Yeah.
than Loneliest Girl. Loneliest Girl is like, oh, I like this song, I'll jam to it, and then next song. But
Yeah. Yeah. That's. I feel this similar with that. Okay, so let us kind of
one
pull
thing I
back.
did,
Oh,
one thing I did notice in that last episode, I think it was last episode, Angela's song
mhm.
when she was performing, it it seemed to be again like her becoming this full person, definitely someone who can stand on her own. And one of the things I noticed while she was singing, it was showing scenes of the city, and
Yeah.
on the banners going by, it was showing things like was it messages of not getting trapped in the past and building up onto the future and stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I see
I
what
was
you're
hoping
doing.
you'd catch it actually. um, fun fact: that's actually showing on the billboards right in the first episode.
Really?
It is, in fact.
What a positive message for your populace.
um. So I guess let's. I'm trying to think of the best way to structure this. If we want to do a bit of a larger breakdown, or if we want to kind of go down through the characters and such here first.
Oh, let's do
Um.
characters.
Okay. So we'll kind of do this as we had in the past. So I guess antagonist. I think we've covered that. You're still kind of with the. There's no actual direct antagonists
No, it's
in your thought.
so I mean generally in any type of story there will be some form of conflict. That
Mm,
conflict is typically brought about by having an antagonist. There isn't actually an antagonist in this. In fact, there's not even that much conflict. Most of it's about growth and
mhm,
people becoming whole and finding themselves.
yeah. All right. So let's talk about some of the characters or just themes and characters here. So I think again you're starting to say a lot of the themes that I was thinking of. I know we specifically talked about the AI versus human touch.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to say now. I think there's a broader thought to that. It's the authenticity
Mm.
versus manufacture. So I know I said to you previously, think back about why OG Bulldog lost in his round.
It wasn't authentic.
He wasn't authentic,
I see what you're saying.
right? And I think it even gets touched on here. Um, and I think you see that actually through a lot of the characters. So this is where I'm saying this was there right from the get-go, right? Think of how Gus related to was to most music when he was drunk in the bar,
Hmm.
and then he hears something authentic, and it snaps him out. Um, so right from episode one, you had that.
Even the interaction with Erdogan, where Tuesday snaps and burns the paper, like that was an authentic moment,
Hmm.
and he could see that immediately. Though, I mean, that whole storyline didn't go the way that I thought it would, but It definitely kind of goes into that broader feeling, like even Skip.
Yeah. Yep.
And I mean, he was definitely your wise elder trope
Hmm.
to just come back and lay some wisdom down and then move on.
Yep.
And then you had Crystal, who also noticed the authenticity, and she was more of a uh, like an emotional reinforcement trope, but she did the same thing, recognized their authenticity.
Yep. Right. In the live house, it was the same thing, right? Like, yeah, just those 10 people and everyone. Yeah, I think that that's definitely there. And as you said, even the way Erdogan reacts, the way he reacted to Peter and GGK compared to Angela and
Hmm.
Carol and Tuesday, it's definitely a big aspect of it. So that's the theme that I was seeing through it. And then you kind of see where I was saying, you're dancing around it the entire time. Right? Um, so yeah, I think that's the big one. What are his thoughts on Erdogan at this point?
Still my man.
Yep.
Uh, I like him more and more every time he shows up. From treating Roddy like a little brother that he would do anything for, to like even his speeches, like you could see that he definitely enjoys talking to himself, but the way that he does it is important, and the word usage.
Hmm.
Uh, you might think, he's talking about. I mentioned this earlier, how his words could have been construed that he's the only one who could be as famous as he became, but what he was actually saying was he was the only one that could become this version of him.
Yeah.
So I think I still wonder. I kind of mentioned this in a past second wall. I wonder if it is a stage character. I'm having second thoughts on that, because before I thought for a while that is it just a stage character, something that he's doing and putting on a show for his
Right.
fans, or is it something more authentic? Or is this him growing out of that stage character, and what will season 2 have for him? So this is a consideration for me, like how will we see him grow and see the authenticity come from him?
All right. Makes perfect sense to me. Let's go with. I'm gonna go with Tao next.
Tao. Hey, I'm glad that I'm glad that you went with him next, cuz I mean, out of all the characters that they've had, he's had the least amount of reveals about his character. We know that he could get into like high money games, investments and that sort of thing, and do well at it. The other investment guy was like, you come join us.
Yeah.
Super smart, let's do it. And I think he's searching for something, and I think he might be the Tin Man. He might be a Tin Man trope. Uh, Tin Man searching for
If
a
he only had
heart.
a heart. Yeah.
Yeah. So he built a machine to find it, which is not how I saw him before.
Mhm.
I definitely just saw him as like someone who was envious of AIs and wanted to be one.
Yeah.
I now think I'm wrong at that, but I definitely think Tin Man trope is the way.
Yeah. I will go to. We'll go to Angela next.
Angela, so good. Her development as a character has probably been the best out of everyone. Carol and Tuesday were both very straightforward. They, of course, have their own complexities, which will be revealed over time. But as a whole, I think they put the most consideration into Angela. The her backstory, the way that she reacts, the way it informs her character, makes me wonder. Makes me wonder if the story was originally about her, like in first draft, sort of thing,
Okay.
and then on rewriting, third, fourth draft situation, is that where it actually became about Carol Tuesday? Like
That's an
how?
interesting thought.
Yeah, It's, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if some obscure trivia on, a Japanese fan site, and it's just like, yeah, this was originally about, Angela, and it was a completely different story.
All right, I'm gonna sidetrack a little bit instead of going into Carole and Tuesday right away on that one, actually. So I watch way too much shoujo anime.
Okay, yeah.
I enjoy the slice of life. I enjoy the magical schoolgirl genre, Sailor Moon, Utena, that type of thing.
Oh, that's why you're wearing fuku.
Thanks. We're supposed
Anything
to
I can
tell
do
them.
for you.
We're waiting till our sponsors.
No, it's a preview. It's an audio preview for the OnlyFans.
Yeah. So, um, so Uteno is the one that really showed this for me. It's about Utena, but Utena is not the character that grows. Utena is not the character that actually has the development. So I wonder if it's actually a shoujo type trope.
So to go to the metaphor I was using before, where Sybil was the wind through the valley, moving the flowers and pushing the leaves, Carol and Tuesday are the valley.
Yeah, I wonder if that's a good chunk because it because I don't get the quite the impression that it was the show could have been called Angela,
No, I just
right? I but I think it's that through the rivalries is how
mm,
the characters grow and such like that. It, the way I almost look at it is again up until episode 11, like these girls were unshakable, and then they did have that bit of a freak out, right? Like I said, where Carol's like, "No, we've got to win," that type of thing, right? And rectified that afterwards. It's through them being unshakable, as you said before, they're going to make everyone else around them better. So you get that rivalry. So we see their growth in a way through Angela's growth, through that rivalry, even if it's just Angela putting on that rivalry herself and the girl's not necessarily.
I'll have to mull that one over. I see what you're saying and it makes sense to me, but for me to slot it in to like
Yeah,
the puzzle piece that is this series, it'll take some
yeah,
consideration. Like it makes a
yeah,
lot of sense what you're saying.
yeah.
The it just makes it may the reason why I think it is she her character is more carefully considered than others.
Mhm. Okay.
The way that she is emotionally and the way she portrays herself is directly like it directly correlates to her past, and her growth is definitely along the appropriate lines for
Right.
someone. uh so essentially what I'm saying is they definitely considered her character start to finish, whereas I haven't seen any glimpse of an endpoint for, say, Carol and Tuesday or Gus.
Okay.
They're definitely more open ended.
Mm.
It's
Okay.
probably why I'm getting that. But
Um,
you're probably right about like the like the character development tropes and the way that people develop in this. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Um, it was one thing that I kind of noted is because you said you way back that you weren't sure how tropey it was going to be.
Hmm.
I think one thing that kind of entered my mind is I don't I don't think you're looking at the right set of tropes.
Well, I'm just unfamiliar with the genre
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I'm not much of a shoujo guy. When I have
yeah,
dipped into the Japanese animations, it was definitely on the shonen side.
yeah.
That's because I don't know. I probably have superhero fantasy. It's probably my.
That's fair.
Yep.
Um, I guess so. With that, let's talk about Carol and Tuesday.
Uh, well, in the end of the series, I didn't. For me, Carol and Tuesday were just all about togetherness.
Mhm.
That bond that was established early. That they definitely were shook up at the end. I didn't I didn't really get a feeling of it being an intense impact.
Right.
Like it didn't strike me hard that shake up. So it left something wanting there. But I definitely like that sisterly aspect of it. Just two friends with common dreams and uh, matching hearts,
Yeah,
striving to become something or do something.
that makes sense. Yeah, I think they definitely are. And again, it's that the togetherness. I think that's why I again say that even though it wasn't quite as you saw it as a betrayal, I do think it was because it's again the only time we ever see that togetherness being shaken
True.
from the first time we see them. Um, and I think in a way they both betrayed each other,
Hmm.
which makes sense because if they're for the most part we see them as one unit. If one side's betrayed, the other side's going to be as well.
You know what? And I think it would have been. This is the only time you're gonna hear me criticize this about Carol and Tuesday. But that situation is the only time I don't think they got the music right.
Yeah.
I think if they had done the music different during the bench scene and the neither of them texting scene, it
Mhm.
would have had a greater impact. I just, again, I'm not a 17-year-old girl, but I didn't get that sense of their hearts being as far away from each other as their distance was.
Yeah.
Like they both seemed to have an understanding, but they both couldn't reach out. But I didn't get a reflection of how much it was impacting them individually.
I think I'm actually going to agree with you completely on that. Um, I think the a lot of this ends up being informed by Gus,
Yes.
right? There's kind of hints of it when you kind of see like when they're talking on the bench about it's really the first time Carol isn't talking about the music.
Mm.
She's talking about winning and the music when like and with the texting,
Yeah.
it's the first song that wasn't what's the word? Diegetic.
Okay.
It was the only song that I can think of that had lyrics and everything that wasn't being sung by a character we were watching. Did I use the right word?
Yeah, I had to look it up on the internets so
Yeah.
I could understand because I don't uh, me word not so good.
Even though he's super smart.
I am super smart. Thank you for agreeing with me. The yeah, and I think that's important. I wouldn't want them to change it,
Yeah.
but if they were, it would have been I wouldn't have even minded a throwaway character busking with just like a gentle song, maybe strumming on a guitar, someone you've never seen before, just kind of singing a song that wafted through the air during those circumstances. It would have brought it home. It would have been established thematically, but I just I didn't feel the impact. I don't think they got the emotion right there, which is so weird for me to say for Carol and Tuesday because they were so spot on everywhere. But I haven't actually written much down for Carol and Tuesday and their characters as developing for a while now.
Mhm.
as I've been watching. I mean, there's circumstances. I was definitely impressed with season 11, episode 11,
Mhm.
and how it seemed to frame Carole like becoming herself. Not quite
Yeah.
there, but definitely becoming. I wonder if rearranging the scenes or something would have done it.
Here's this is obviously complete speculation. Honestly, just kind of entered my mind
Okay,
talking about the
we like to
that
speculate.
song. It's true. I almost wonder if the reason they did that song as, any other show would,
Hmm.
was meant to kind of show that betrayal and that separation,
Hmm.
because it is out of place for the series Carol and Tuesday as well.
Honestly, as a directing decision, if I were to base it around this, it was either that either holds true or was like the biggest blunder of the series.
Mhm.
It has to be one of those two. I don't see it being any other way.
Yeah. Yeah, because like I don't think it could have been a busker, because how are both of them hearing the same? I think that could have been changed if there was like a radio, but
Hmm.
but
Or a
again,
Crystal
I
song.
yeah, right. Like, but I think the fact that it was yeah, I think the fact that it was not diegetic is I'd like to think it means something, because as you said, it's either I hope that was the choice or it was a mistake, and I can definitely agree that like having watched the show a few times, seeing that it actually threw me off when I watched it the other night because
Like
I'm looking at that a little bit differently. I'm like, wait a second.
one thing I would have liked to see, and I'll kind of transition over to one of the next characters, and that's Roddy.
Mhm.
They haven't really done anything with him. I would have enjoyed if they had brought him into that situation for the what seemed to be in my mind more of his maternal role.
Right.
So he could talk, maybe have a conversation about Carol about the emotions of what's going on.
Mm.
But then again, that's just me trying to like assert my views upon the series as to what Roddy's thematic role in it is.
Mm.
He hasn't really done anything besides been like, look at this petite looking person in this ball cap. This is the one who probably did it. The last 5 episodes.
Um.
I did feel bad for him sitting between, was
Oh,
it
I know.
Dahlia and Gus? I had written down just like, it just says episode 10, poor Roddy.
Yeah. It's funny because like I see exactly what you're saying. Like he doesn't have a character in the same way, but at the same time, he's essentially been the driving force of the show.
Hmm.
He's actually been, if it wasn't for Roddy, none of this would be happening.
I think I'd have to watch it again with an eye for it.
Well,
The
I'll give a couple of quick examples.
Okay.
Um, the two girls were playing, having, not thinking anything of it. Roddy ended up filming it,
Hmm.
and his friend ends up seeing it. Roddy gets them into the live house, which actually gets them onto the stage of the Sidonia Festival, even though Gus tried. Roddy was the one who's like, let's get into the music show. Let's get you in touch with Erdogan,
Hmm.
right? Like he's been kind of that, in a way, he's kind of been that linchpin like that.
Yeah. Maybe I just because it's such a character developed show.
Mhm.
There's something lacking to me for him just being a vehicle like that.
Yeah.
I, like there's we don't know any real development for him besides the fact that he likes to program AIs. He knows a bunch of people. he likes robots and he's a computer nerd.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, they for him to have such a central role but no real development. At at this point, I'm really wondering if Tao has more development than him, or at least reveal,
Yeah.
or more impactful. Um, it, and that kind of goes to just a roundup of Roddy as a character over season 10.
Mm, episode.
I or season 1. Thank you. Season 10. Jeez. I was looking at something that said episode 10.
Oh.
Um, the the lack of development of Roddy is probably the only other thing that I could see lacking besides the um, non-diegetic sound during the conflict
Right.
in episode 11. The that probably brings us to the last full character, which is Gus.
Mm.
And I'm gonna ask you a question.
All right.
I mentioned this ages ago that I definitely saw Gus as taking more of that um, typical paternal role in this family of um, individuals who have gathered together.
Yeah.
Would, especially after seeing the the advice and the conversation with Carole,
Mm.
like, would you agree that there's no real other way that we can see him as a character?
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like that has to be what they're doing with him. He's he's got the full belief behind his metaphorical daughters,
Mm-hmm.
and he is literally pulling out all of the stops for them.
And
He's pulled out favors with all of his music contacts. Worked or not, that's beside the point. Like he is doing everything for
well,
them.
I mean, to the point where it even frames how important it was that he reached out to his ex-wife,
Mhm.
because it was obvious that he was talking about his ex-wife as someone who was the one he felt betrayed him,
Yeah,
and he believed so much that he would bridge that gap. And I mean, that was that was a great scene too, like going back there, like him having that heart to heart with his ex-wife, and his ex-wife just being like, found someone that makes me happy, and he was just like, nice,
yeah,
like, that's awesome.
yeah,
And you could tell he meant it. So but for him to initially bridge that divide, and it's hard. That, I mean, he's definitely a bit of a bumbling father figure.
yeah,
He definitely falls short in some ways, but he's probably the realest character in the show. Uh, Definitely the most down to earth. But then again, I'm not a 17-year-old girl.
yeah, yeah. No, he, yeah, definitely the that paternal instinct is there. I mean, he literally went to jail for them.
True. But again, I really was hoping there would be a scene like, instead of just him getting tackled at the mansion,
Yeah,
where him being like, you hit Carole and like decking the guy. I wanted
yeah,
to see that because, I mean, it wouldn't have fit thematically in the show at
yeah,
all.
yeah,
Like, it's best that it was just a tackle now they're in jail. But for it to be m- for my satisfaction in it, maybe because I saw him as the father figure and I wanted him to have that, just
yeah,
that reinforcement,
yeah,
but it wouldn't have fit. I'll say that now.
yeah, yeah. I think honestly, that's probably the only reason we didn't see that.
True.
Right?
They
Um,
definitely managed the time well.
we've said that right from the get go. They've done very well with managing the time.
And I think that's I think that's important because it, the way that the episodes are structured are very similar to how it's done in comics.
Okay.
You can't waste space. Every panel needs to be important, and everything said needs to develop the story in some way.
Yeah.
Like to the point where when Angela's singing, they're showing city banners with positive messages. Um, Structurally, I would I would think you could structure each episode in such a way of this one develops this character, this one develops that character, even though it
Yeah.
involves everyone. And this kind of goes back to 11, where it seems to keep referencing becoming whole or becoming myself or becoming the best person, and the one that of course I was projecting that on was Carole.
Yeah.
So using that as a structure, if you were to go back, I think you'd be able to see that for a lot of these episodes.
Yeah.
And the way that no line is a throwaway, everything said is important in some way.
Yeah.
I mean, the the only real exception might be some of like the comedy stuff between like Dahlia and Gus. But even then, that rivalry itself is important.
Even if it's a proxy rivalry
Well,
between
exactly.
them. Yeah. So, what are your overall grand predictions for season
Grand
2?
predictions. Uh, Erdogan featuring Angela. I think that's
Okay.
gonna happen. I think. I think. Hmm. I hadn't put any consideration into it. So, my 3 second thought. I don't. So the way these talent show things are generally structured, and I definitely don't know this from watching Korean audition programs where they make bands. Uh, the way that it's generally structured is you get some type of recording deal or contract with a recording agency,
Mm,
which means they'll probably get into it and they'll probably get their album offer, and pressures of that is probably not going to jive with Carole and Tuesday.
mm,
It's probably going to be fine for Angela, especially with, I mean, they're Tao and Angela are only doing that for the publicity, anyways.
right.
Like they don't actually need the money to debut Angela. So I'm wondering if this will end up being a thing where they start doing it or it doesn't jive or they're unhappy with the product. Then they decide to go back to it. They're doing it their own way
Right.
or taking some controls over the project themselves when it's getting taken away from them by executives. I could see that being like a grand prediction of what's going on. I think the conflicts we'll start seeing will be more related to the peripheral characters and not Carole and Tuesday. There'll Structurally there will be some grand conflict, mostly related to the recording project, is what I'm thinking. Alternatively, there's still the issue with the mother. So I have to wonder about that. I might have to come back to this in the next second wall where we discuss first couple episodes of season 2,
Mm,
because I'm not sure where the series as a whole is gonna go. I think Roddy might disappear for a while, and I think Gus is gonna feel pushed out, as if he had maybe even he'll probably feel pushed out as they do their music project and then get some form of like empty nest syndrome.
okay.
Yeah, I could see something like that. Other than that, I'm probably way off. I do kind of feel like this was originally written as 2 seasons. Uh, Most shows you can definitely tell that it was like written as 1 season and they're hoping to get renewed.
Yeah.
whereas this one definitely felt it really only feels like we're halfway.
Yeah,
So that's why I'm having a lot of troubles.
oh, that's fair.
We'll
Um,
definitely see more development of Tao.
so I want to get just kind of a little bit of clarification before we wrap up here.
Sure.
You say you're expecting to see more conflict around the secondary characters of Carol and Tuesday. How do you mean, like, what do you mean by that? Are you meaning like conflict between, say, Angela and Erdogan, or conflict around the periphery characters, or
Well, I mean conflict in the way that it was thematically set up in the first season, either growth or overcoming obstacles. I mean, I could see some silly spat between Angela and Tao, but I doubt it would be that big.
right?
It would probably just be Tao being a jerk and Angela just, like, quit it.
All right.
Like I don't see, Tao and Roddy getting into a fight, though I would
Yeah.
probably pay to see that.
Fair enough. All right. Okay, that clarifies how I want it. So,
My my question though, the opening credits, and this leaves me with either a sense of wonder or makes me wonder if we haven't actually gotten to that yet. The 7 minutes
mhm.
in that room that was shown when he says it have not been encountered yet. So I don't think we've reached that. They didn't wow Mars with their 7 minutes. They were on a Mars broadcasted television series, but there was nothing at all that would indicate that that 7 minutes that wowed Mars was that situation. So that has to happen. So that's got to be an end of season two.
I don't know how much confirmation you want here.
I want none
Oh,
because
fine.
I fully intend to be watching this show
Mhm.
to finish it off, and it's it is super fun watching this with no spoilers at all.
Mm,
To come into this very fresh eyed, for it to be out and for us to discuss it in this way, because I mean at this time there's there's nothing really that are these water cooler conversations
yeah.
discussing and the little predictions and what's going to happen and what do you think of this character. I mean, I miss having these, and
Mm,
there hasn't been a show that really has sparked that for a lot of people in a long time,
yeah.
and this is definitely like fulfilling that need in me.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And oh, I've enjoyed it immensely, even knowing the show, right? It's just having the discussions with you, and I know I'm holding back on what I'm saying for obvious reasons, but it's just the speculation is just that, like, I enjoy it. I've been keeping notes of your speculation since the beginning of the second wall here, and it's just fun to watch the growth and just the thoughts around it. And I mean, as I said, like circling around this one theme for
Like
three and a half
six.
episodes of this, right?
Yeah, it was definitely 3.5 and not 6.5 because I'm super smart.
We have 6.5 episodes overall for Beauty and the Beast, but only four of those this after this one is second wall. Any other final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
uh I'd like to see all these side characters come back and not be throwaway. Uh,
All right.
the club owner, Skip, Bristol, even even the judges. I'd like to see them come back in some very minor way, but our Skip and Crystal, I'd like to see come back. Maybe to right Carol and Tuesday back onto the appropriate paths as they lose their authenticity. And I that'll probably be the overall theme of the next season, them losing or veering off the path of their authenticity and having to find it again. Now that they have like a record deal, or I mean, that's what they implied by Mars Brightest. Yeah.
All right. With that, we'll wrap up the second wall here. Then make sure to check out Media Club next week, where we will be discussing the 1997 movie Event Horizon, and we'll be back with more Carol and Tuesday after that. Start going into season 2. These will be up on your podcast network of choice, the list of which can be found at beardyandthebeast.com, uh, also on most social media platforms. And thanks for joining Beardy and the Beast Second Wall. Have a great week, and see you next time.
Pow pow!